Hello and welcome to Your Schools. I'm your host, Lynn Turner Fitzgerald. Mark Sulser joins us today. Mark is the Executive Director of Activities and Athletics for School District 2. A very big job, I'm guessing. Mark, thanks for being here.
Well, thanks for having me.
You've got a lot of programs that you oversee.
Yes, we're busy in Billings with the 6 middle schools and 3 high schools. We're busy year-round other than the summer, and there's always something on my desk.
Needs
Every
some
day.
attention.
For sure.
Well, it's kind of exciting. I see that baseball is coming to School District 2 for the first time.
For the first time ever. Well, we can't say first time ever.
Okay.
In District 2. I know my dad, ironically, I was talking with an AD the other day and told him my dad graduated from Great Falls High in 1952 or whatever year that was, and he did some research, and I guess I found out that my dad was on a state championship baseball team from Great Falls High back then.
Oh my goodness.
So it was there for a minute. It's been done before, but now we're bringing it back.
What was the push to get it back?
You know, so what happened is the exiting executive director of the Montana High School Association, Mark Beckman, it was on his list, I guess, as he was ending, and you know, it had come up, and the conversations had come up about baseball and its time, and you know, with 48 of 50 states having baseball, it was,
wow.
We were thinking it may be time for Montana. And so as he exited, that got approved, not because of him necessarily, but that was one of his last things that got done at the MHSA meeting, annual meeting, and you know, baseball's now sanctioned, and so teams are slowly, or not teams, but schools and districts are slowly entering into the baseball era.
So Billings School District 2 then would compete on the AA level? Or is
eventually. So right now, just within a year's time, we basically doubled the number of teams statewide.
Wow.
I think the first, I don't even want to give you the number, but we went from 2 divisions to now 4 divisions. And so our Billings schools will compete in the East Division. We haven't separated into AA yet. There's only Butte, Belgrade, the 3 Billings schools, and the 3 Missoula schools that have baseball, with baseball being brand new in Missoula, and they're slowly entering the baseball phase. So we're not ready to be a full-on AA conference, and so the way we're set up is our conference is Senior West, Skyview Central, Laurel, Columbus, Sydney, and Huntley. So that's our division.
Yeah.
And so we'll play 14 conference games with 4 non-conference games, and it changes year to year as to who gets to advance. I think the East has one automatic bid and then 2 play-in bids. So we'll have the number 1 seed out of the East, which is our league. They'll advance to the state tournament in Hamilton with 2 play-in possibilities. So in theory, the 3 Billings schools could have 3 teams at the state tournament in May. So it's all brand new to us. I think we have a lot of things in place. The big challenge for us with baseball was fields.
Pretty tough in the wintertime.
Well, it is, and you know, weather's
but yeah, where will you
challenge.
compete?
Right. So with our high school softball teams, we have 2 designated fields per team. West High has 2 fields at Will James for their JV and varsity team. Skyview has 2 fields at 10th and Central for their JVs and varsity, and then Skyview has on campus at Skyview. For baseball, there's no fields. So we own 6 fields for softball and 0 fields for baseball.
Okay.
So that's one of the challenges that we knew we'd be trying to work through. So what we're doing is the West High team will practice at Musburger. Senior will practice at 8th and Central Park there. And then Skyview will rent Underwood Park for their practice facility. Those fields you could probably play games there, but they're not really set up for high school level competition. And so we'll play all of our conference games at Pertsfield. Okay. And again, when you're used to each school having 2 fields to now each school sharing 1 field, scheduling becomes a challenge. So games are going to be played throughout the week. But we're going to use Pertsfield for our conference games that are home, and then we'll travel to the various teams. And then the second half of the season, when the weather gets better, we will play our crosstowns at Dealer Park. So
You will.
there'll be 3 crosstown games at Dealer.
Nice.
Yeah, we're excited
Okay.
about that.
Well, it seems to me like there used to be baseball fields all over the place.
It did. And I don't know, things have changed. Interest in other sports, kids participating in maybe a winter sport that now is year-round. If you're a basketball player, you may play basketball year-round, or if you're a wrestler, you may wrestle year-round. And so that's kind of maybe been a reason why the numbers haven't been so great in baseball. But you're right, even just growing up, and I know you're from Billings, you could drive down Rimrock, and by the time you get to the end, you see 2 or 3 or 4 Little League fields, so times have changed a little bit, but I think that in all of this, to be able to play baseball for your school will be awesome for the kids.
Well, there must be a level of excitement for it.
Yes.
Are the teams already in place?
Well, we'll do team selections just like we do softball at the beginning of the season. Our head coaches and assistant coaches have been put in place. We're going to hire a coordinator at each school to sort of help us get started with those and make sure the facilities are ready for games. We did that with soccer when we started soccer years ago. We had a soccer coordinator for each team to kind of help us get started, and eventually that position grew into one of the assistant coaches. Basically, you set up and take down the field, and it's already set up. So hopefully we get to that point, but we know our resources with our building activities coordinators and myself spread between track and tennis and softball already. We're going to need a little help to get started, and so that's why that position was created.
Well, it's exciting.
Absolutely.
So will they have names, or will they just be like the Bronx and the Bears?
Yes, they'll use their school name.
I'm just wondering for like sponsorship opportunities like Dealer Park. Could somebody come in and say, Will Coxon's Ice Cream sponsors a team?
Well, so we've avoided that like sponsor on the uniform.
Yeah.
We've been able to avoid that. Our teams are very, whether not just baseball, but all our programs are very self-sustaining. I mean, honestly, for like the district provides very little. We provide stipends, we provide practice and game facilities, and transportation and lodging, and then guidance and schedules and along. But as far as like the meals that the kids have on the road, and the uniforms that they buy, and the equipment that they purchase, the vast majority of that is all fundraised for. So, between the district providing what we provide and then the fundraised items, we're not at a point where we need teams to be sponsored.
Okay, well, just a thought. All right, so speaking of money, tell me about Dallas Stadium. What's happening there? Is it going to be repaired or in pieces?
Well, that's a great question. The history of Dallas, it's in such a great spot. It's centrally located. It's protected from the elements. It's sort of equidistant from from Skyview and West. It's a community center, and such great tradition that we've had there, right? And we own it. And so the plan would be to, as a minimum, would be to tear down the entire west side, expand the track from 6 lanes to 8 lanes all the way around, and 10 on the west side straightaway.
Why would you do that?
Well, that would make us a candidate for state track meet.
Oh, okay.
So the ideal facility for a state track meet is a 10-lane track. However, you can run a state track meet on 8 lanes, and they do that in Great Falls every other year, or every 3 years. So we would be able to facilitate a state track meet based on that plan. But again, we would just reconstruct the entire west side with locker rooms and roughly 3,000 seats. And one of the things that, years ago there were 2 high schools. There were Senior and West when Dallas was started, and really Senior used those as their own locker room and their practice facility and game facility, and West High would come over for games. What we want to do, and in the plan, is to still have those 2 locker rooms for Senior High, but also add a third and a fourth locker room, one for West and one for Skyview, so that it would really be their home. And then when Senior hosts the West or Skyview locker room, would be the visitor locker room. When Skyview and West hosts the Senior locker room, would be the visitor. So when I coached at Skyview years ago and we would bus down to Dallas for games, I never thought that Dallas was anybody's stadium but ours when I was at Skyview, right?
Yeah.
And I think that if you talk to alumni that have played at West and Skyview, Dallas is their home.
Yeah.
It's not in their backyard, but once they show up, it's their facility.
You know, I hate to sound naive. I was not aware that there were locker rooms there. Are they in the under the grandstands?
They are. They are. And
Why
they
is
have,
the West crumbling and not the East?
well, we redid the East. So
Oh,
when I
okay.
was coaching at Senior in the early 2000s, we condemned the East side.
Oh.
And that was the wood structure. And so we tore that down and added roughly 2,000 seats. And when I say we, I'm saying Dave Williams was the activities director at the time. And we had to do it. It was a inexpensive fix at the time because the foresight of Dave and the previous ADs, they added a dayless surcharge to all the tickets, right? So it was $1 surcharge, and so it's always $1 more per ticket when you attend a game at Dayless, and that fund was built up, and through some fundraising and some creative financing, they were able to reconstruct that east side with, really not even noticing it.
Right.
But the west side's different because there's plumbing, or there's plumbing, there's locker rooms, there's meeting rooms, there's the bleachers itself, there's the press box. It's just more. It requires more.
Yeah, well, and I've seen photos of the crumbling cement work and some of that. So is there a way to piecemeal this then, or?
Well,
The first thing would be the tracks.
yeah, so the track and the West Grandstand are the number one priority because the track is not usable right now. Senior high will be able to practice there, but they won't have any track meets there. We're going to move all of their events to other locations. Lockwood's one of them, possibly West High when they're not using their track or when they're on the road. And then, honestly, that team's just going to have to go on the road more. They'll go to Butte this year. They'll have one of their meets at Lockwood. So we need to get that resurfaced. We're going to move our middle school track meet to Lockwood because that's where it normally is, and it's great for students and fans because there's plenty of seating.
Yeah.
But the track has seen its day. So to replace the track, and we don't have to move anything because there are already 8 lanes on the east side, so we don't have to move anything. We can take that same footprint, put the new track right over that, and then get the West Grandstand built. That being said, we have been we've worked with the Bannock Group as our sort of initial fundraising phase, and they will come to us with a number of projection that we can do privately, that what we can do for this stadium privately. Now, honestly, we're in uncharted waters.
Yeah.
Because we've never really privately fundraised for something that Billings Public Schools has, right? Or it's not common.
Well, it seems to me that being able to host track meets and other events, though, is a moneymaker for the whole town.
Oh, 100%.
For lodging and meals and shopping and.
Yes, it's great for our community, and it not only does it do that, but the youth that pass through Billings and have a good experience, like with state wrestling, they remember that, and eventually they may want to be a citizen here. They may want to live here and raise their kids.
Back. All right,
Yeah.
Wrestling. Let's talk girls wrestling. What?
So this is our 4th year. Yeah.
Really?
So we've always had a version of girls wrestling.
Okay.
But girls wrestled boys, right?
Oh.
And so there was really no separation of gender. 4 years ago, we started girls wrestling. This is the 4th year, and I don't know that it's doubled from last year, but every year it's doubled and then some. And
Really?
so what that has caused is, you start out with a few girls having to wrestle some guys, and then we start girls wrestling, and then there's some small teams of 2 or 3 girls, and the teams start to grow. And now, like for Billings alone, every single team, so there's 14 weight classes, every single team has more than 14 kids.
Wow.
Senior and Skyview are well into the high 20s on their team. West High is in close to 20. They don't always fill out their lineup because of the weight classes. But for the most part, we can fill out our dual teams right here in Billings. And what that's done is, because girls wrestling has grown so fast, is we now have gone to a 3-day state wrestling tournament.
Wow.
We're going to start on Thursday with 2 rounds of girls and 1 round of boys. We're going to have our long day on Friday, which is, for the first time, we'll have our semifinals on Friday night.
Okay.
Usually that's Saturday morning, and it's the best part of the tournament because you get the best of the best trying to get to the state championship match.
Yeah.
And that's going to be Friday night at Metra, and then we'll finish on Saturday with our placing matches and our championships. So,
Wow.
but that's what girls wrestling has done.
Yeah.
We doubled our attendance last year by the end of Friday night. I mean, it's just, there's people everywhere. It's awesome. It's a great event.
It surprises me.
Yeah, it's taken off like crazy.
Okay. Wow. All right. You have so many programs here. I don't know where to start. You're swimming. Do you have teams at every high school, or do they all come together to form one?
It's one team per school. We
Okay.
have 3 coaches at each school. Practice facilities are a challenge, and meet facilities. And thank goodness for MSUB. They've opened up their doors. They've let us practice. Rocky's allowed us to practice. They don't have meets we don't have meets at Rocky anymore.
Nobody does.
But yeah.
It's too small.
Right. And
Yeah.
so the relationship, we're blessed because our coaches have a great relationship with those at MSUB.
That's great.
And the club. And so they allow us to have our meets at MSUB. And then we spend a lot of time going to Great Falls because they have the best facility. That's where the state tournament is, and our state swim meet. So that's the best facility. We're able to provide an opportunity for our kids with the limited resources that we have.
Do you ever foresee School District 2 building its own pool?
That's been talked about, so we're behind, and don't get me wrong, I love Billings more than any place in the whole world.
Yeah.
But, say Bozeman, they built their schools and added their school and updated their facilities right ahead of the pandemic, and the tax fatigue that we now have wasn't quite what it was. Great Falls High did a similar thing. So really for us to build a pool, it would take a bond, and it would take a significant bond. And what I mean by that is I don't see Billings Public Schools running a bond for a pool. I see Billings Public Schools running a bond someday for improvements for the high schools like we did for the elementary and middle schools years ago.
Yeah.
And then possibly a pool could be included in that.
What
But
about
that
a
was what I was
partnership with the city and the county? Is that a possibility?
I think that's a possibility, but it's kind of like the reverse of the relationship that we have with, say, Parks and Rec. Parks and Rec, they use our facilities for their, and it's a great relationship, and they're our facilities. We share them with them, and they are very good stewards and good to us. But then I would say the reverse would be true if it were the city. So the city may do that, and then we would come to them and say, can we get some time there? Will you share with us, and we'll reciprocate? I think that would be more of the model for a swimming situation for us.
Do you have, do these athletes try out to be on the team?
Yes and no. So we have some sports that are unlimited, and then we have some sports that are unlimited, and some sports that are selection sports. Track is unlimited, cross country is unlimited, football is unlimited, swimming's unlimited, but you have to make the lineup, the top 3 or the top 4 to get in the pool and to be a part of the relay or the event. So all sports have a version of selection.
Okay.
And swimming's not one of them.
Yeah.
That has a total, we open it up to everybody.
Okay, all right, good. You have softball?
Yes.
Is that for both
Girls.
boys? It's
Just
all
girls.
girls softball. That's not new, is it?
No, I believe softball's been around since the early to mid 80s.
Yeah, it seems to me that that's true. Now the cheer and dance, which falls under your purview.
Right.
Tell me about that.
Well, it's just a bunch of great kids that want to be a part of something, and I can, so we have a cheer and a head cheer coach and an assistant cheer coach at each of the 3 schools, and so we have JV and varsity. We keep up to 16 varsity and 12 JV. And so there's that number of students that participate, and they support our teams at all the events.
Right.
They go to some non-sanctioned cheer competitions and camps.
Really? Okay.
But again, cheer and dance are different because they're not sanctioned, and so there's a plus and minus on that. They're not sanctioned, so they're not, they may be some of the competitions are not available to them that, say, a basketball team would have.
Sure.
That being said, they can go to non-sanctioned competitions, 2 per year, and they can also, they have more freedom with how they do things. They're not under the MHSA microscope. They pretty much, they fundraise, they get what they need, they do what they do, and
Wow.
and they go from there. And we take our cheer to every state tournament, every state competition, and we love what they do for our teams. The culture that they help create at each building is,
Yeah.
we couldn't live without them, honestly.
So again, I'm going to reveal that when I was in school here, we had majorettes. Is that what dance is now?
Yes, and we only have dance at Skyview. And the challenge with dance is practice facilities and interest.
Really?
And we've had various dance programs at Senior and West over the years, and we've had a hard time finding the right person and the right facility to do that. Skyview has been able to work around that, and they've held on to that program. But the days of the majorettes, my wife was a majorette back in the mid-'80s.
Well,
at
you
Senior.
got to have the Nesbits.
Yes.
First of all, you need the Nesbits,
100%.
right?
Yeah.
They were so passionate.
100%. And that's, honestly, I'm glad you brought that up, because that is what drives our programs. It's the people that are running the programs that make the programs. And then, because honestly, Billings, we're always going to be, for lack of a better term, good, because we have great kids, we have a great community. The support for activities is as good as it is anywhere. But when we get our teams to the next level, it's the person driving the bus and the person that is, and by that I mean the leaders, the coaches, and that's
right.
That's huge for us.
Right. Now, tell me how a new sport. Could you envision any new sports coming on board after baseball?
Well, the next one for us, and really it's the interest inventory.
Right.
And you can do that formally, and we would. That being said, the one that's out there right now is girls flag football.
Really?
That's going to be an Olympic sport when they go to, I believe it's LA in 4 years from now. That will be an Olympic sport. It's already becoming a low-level sanctioned sport. Wow. At the college level. And for us, it's offered in Montana, and Arthur Blank, the owner of Atlantic Falcons and Home Depot, he's got a heart for Montana. He has land here, and he's a real benefactor of that, and he has actually subsidized and paid for the first 3 years of flag football for all the programs that have it now in Montana.
Wow.
And he's offered that to us. We've had a little bit of pause, and I think the concern for us is, what are we going to do when the funding's gone? The thing about flag football is, when you talk to ADs around the state who have it, it's the best thing they have going right now. The girls love it. They have it after all the selection sports have picked their teams in the fall. It's a short window. It doesn't take a lot of girls to have a team, a minimum of 7, up to 15 girls per team, and the girls love it. They have a blast.
Wow.
So that would be, to me, I would think that would be next, if anything, would be girls flag.
Okay. Tell me about fees, because all of these programs, the student athlete pays to participate.
Correct. We raised our fees. We went from, well, I'll just tell you what they are now. High school 65, and for each middle school sport is 55. So it's 65 are the student fees for high school, 55 for middle school. And quite honestly, we hadn't raised fees forever. And we did that because the way we pay our officials, it comes out of those athletic fees. And we're having a hard time getting officials. And we're blessed in Billings because we have really probably the best official pools for all of our sports.
Nice.
But it's hard to find them. And so in order to incentivize officials to become officials, you got to pay them more, you got to treat them better. And so as they got a raise, we raise the fees to offset that. Yeah.
Okay. And finally, volunteers. Do you need community volunteers for anything?
Well, for sure we do. And it's the big events that we're looking at. It's like state wrestling. There's been people that have worked that very first state wrestling meet at Metro when we had it some odd years ago.
Really? And they're still
they've
there.
working it every year.
Wow.
So people that have a wrestling knowledge and that are good with people, those are the kind of people that we need for that event. We have our Billings Invite track meet that is now held at Lockwood. And when I ran in high school here in I didn't run in Billings, but when we came to the Billings Invitational, it was the JCs ran it. So that volunteer organization ran all the events. They ran all of the events inside the events, long jump, triple jump, hurdle crew, timing, all of that. And we don't have that anymore. We're more on the coaches run the events. We get a few key people in the right spot to run that meet. But we love people with track knowledge to help us with those types of activities.
All right. If they are interested, they can contact you at your office?
100%, yes.
Okay, all right.
I'm easy to find.
Well, I want to thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
What a huge amount of responsibility you have, but it looks like you enjoy it.
Yes, for sure. It's great.
Okay.
You got to give back. It's awesome. It's great. I can't believe I get paid for it sometimes.
Awesome. Mark, thanks again for being here. Mark Sulser, Executive Director of Athletics and Activities for School District 2. And thank you for joining us on Your Schools. We'll see you next time.